Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of On Air with Owen, and I am really excited about this one because I've got my good friend, absolute legend, James Ski joining me. James, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
This is absolutely brilliant, Owen. I'm excited. As everybody knows, or they should know, we have become good friends. And I was just saying before we started that I've followed the On Air show for some time. I've also had the pleasure to sit in your office and have my packed lunch in front of that sign. And I was wondering when I would get the invitation to come on the show. So I'm glad I'm here today.
Well, I will give something away. As you know, it's actually not a sign, it's wallpaper, but it looks pretty good. And the amount of people that say, oh, geez, you must, that must have cost a lot to get up on the wall. It's about 50 quid on wallpaper. So it works really well.
Well, that relates, if you think about the scrappy approach startups have to take and founders, you've got to make it work, but it looks quality.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Great to have you on. Now, today you're joining us with your Drift hat on, partnerships manager of Drift, and we're going to be talking about the do's and don'ts, the benefits, the ins and outs of running a partnership channel, which I think is a really interesting discussion. Obviously, your life at Drift is reasonably short so far. You've been there a while, but not too long. But I know that you've seen partnership programs work very well and probably very badly over the years in and around SaaS companies. So it's excited to dig in. Perhaps before we start, for those people that don't know you and aren't part of the James Ski fan club out there, maybe you could give us 2 minutes on Drift and on James before we get into the topic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm sure there's many people that don't know who I am. I'm still trying to persuade my kids to actually watch some of my videos so they know what I'm up to when I travel into London or wherever I get to go in the world. So I'll start with Drift, just from a positioning perspective, so people have got context on the business. Drift was founded in 2014 by a guy called David Cancel and Elias Torres. Now, these are two serial entrepreneurs that sold their last business to HubSpot and then exited HubSpot just before the IPO. They live and breathe sales and marketing, and that's important because that's in my DNA. Firstly, I'm an out-and-out salesperson. I don't hide from that. I don't say I fell into it. I pursued sales. I'm one of those individuals that was always excited about sales as a profession. And as you're aware, I've also built a community called Sales Confidence, where I've had to understand marketing and building brand. So what Drift does is it connects both sales and marketing together to drive revenue outcomes. And that's what business is all about. If you're not driving revenue and you're not generating profits, you're not going to have a successful business and you're not going to achieve what you want to do with your goals. So Drift essentially is a revenue acceleration platform. It is focused on being on the website. So when individuals land on your website, it converts the prospect into a conversation with sales. So a chatbot will interact with an individual when a prospect lands on the website and set up a conversation with a salesperson. Just to give you some context, yesterday I was in London. I'm getting out and about more. So if you're watching this and you want to get out and about and have a drink, non-alcoholic or beer, I'm up for that because I want to be out and about in London. So that's a highlight of
That's an open invite. Here we go.
Yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn. But we were in the Salesforce Tower and Duck and Waffle. Literally while we were sitting there, the sales rep, a fellow drifter who I was with, gets a notification on his phone that one of his target top 20 accounts is on the Drift website there and then. He doesn't wait. Immediately, he starts to interact. He said, look, I've got to have a top conversation with this prospect, gets a conversation, and a meeting automatically gets booked in his diary. And that is the power of Drift. So I was attracted to Drift as someone that's been in and around the sales and marketing and SaaS industry for over 10 years now. And I believe that genuinely Drift has got the greatest total addressable market in the sales and marketing space that I've ever seen. And that's why I decided to join. Ultimately, I like the sales profession and I like marketing, and I get to speak to people every day. My sole focus for Drift is building out our partner ecosystem. So I can go into that a little bit more, but hopefully that gives you a bit of context about Drift, a little bit about me, and happy to answer any more questions.
That's brilliant. Thank you. I mean, it sounds really exciting, and obviously what a great stage to join a company that's clearly going to go somewhere over the next couple of years. Let's talk about the partnership piece, because I think that's where we want to focus on as much as possible. So for those who don't know, because I think, we talk about partnerships like everybody knows what it is. What does that mean? Like, what's a partnership program look like?
Okay, so if you think about your channels as a sales and marketing organization, there are some that immediately come to mind. Inbound, people that are coming directly to your website as leads. Outbound, so you're going outbound via the phone in what you do in your business or email, and you're generating leads that way. And partnerships is another channel to generate leads and to ultimately drive pipeline in the business. And if you look at some of the most successful IPOs in recent times, Databricks, Snowflake, or you look at some of the mega enterprise SaaS businesses like Salesforce or Amazon or Microsoft, they have massive channel and partnership programs. It's a significant driver of leads and pipeline into your business. So simply, you need to see it as another channel to your sales and marketing go-to-market strategy.
Yeah. Okay. So why is it so good? Why is it so powerful?
Well, what's amazing about it is you are working with typically traditional service organizations in some scenarios. So if I use the example of Drift, we have a number of categories that we work with. So we work with digital marketing agencies, digital marketing and implementation agencies, so they implement the software, outbound call service companies like yourselves, but also sales advisory businesses, and then we have technical alliances. Now, each of those agencies or partners are typically boutique size. So when I say boutique, they're kind of small to medium-sized businesses, maybe 25 to 150 employees. So you're often dealing with passionate owners like yourself that care about servicing a need for a business. And so you will often have a much more trusted relationship than a technology vendor. Like, you can't get away from the fact that we want to sell more licenses. That is the business model. That is the ARR, the annual recurring target that every SaaS business is designed. And especially if you're backed by venture capital, there is ambition for an exit at some point, either via IPO or an acquisition, a liquidity event. So there's a lot of pressure to drive license and sell. As a service business, you're reliant on your relationships. You're often in a competitive market. So if you think of marketing and digital agencies, it's very, very competitive. How do they differentiate themselves? Well, they differentiate themselves with knowledge, expertise, innovation. So they tend to have much deeper and broader relationships than a tech vendor. So when you're going into a sales motion and you're involving a partner, a third party in that conversation, sales cycle reduces, the increase in the size of the deal, and also you get a higher close rate. So all of those are beneficial to when you're driving your go-to market. So if you think about comparing that to the other channels, when you're working on outbound, you're just purely working on that focus on outbound. Inbound, you're reliant on what comes to your door based on the power of your brand. But on the partner side, you are really leaning on referrals and existing relationships. And we all know that referrals and existing relationships are the most effective in driving business. They're just difficult to track, and that's why you need a partnerships program around it.
So should any business consider a partnerships program, or is it right for certain types of businesses and not others?
That's a great question. I don't, as another channel, I feel like they should consider. Almost every business should assess the need, at least. I'm not saying everyone should implement a partnerships program, but I feel like early stage software businesses, and when I say early stage, I mean like 1 million to 10 million turnover. They often don't consider partnerships that early. I think that is a missed opportunity. There's absolutely an opportunity at that stage to define a framework and a strategy for what a partner could look like in your industry. The analogy I use a lot in our Drift partnership program, especially in the region, so I'm responsible for building out the program in EMEA, is it's about, I say kind of all ships rise together. There's a huge market out there, right? So if we can all work collectively, we're going to make more noise and we're going to hold the attention. So if you're just trying to build your SaaS company with only inbound and outbound, you're missing a huge trick, because you're not bringing others along for the ride that are also going to promote you.
So why do fewer people consider it at that earlier stage than you think should?
I just, if I'm honest, I mean, you know, and I am going to be honest because I usually am. A lot of software founders don't have experience. They don't have necessary commercial experience. They're excellent product people, but they don't understand what are the commercial go-to market strategies. So immediately they understand, let's have a website and let's get some advertising. That's inbound. And then often they discover outbound and the importance of targeting accounts and using the phone. You know, that's why they speak to Air and their marketing. That's their learning. So partnerships is often a mature area to consider when you are really start to ramping up. You know, any pre-IPO company that's worth its salt is going to have some form of partnerships program. But often that maybe comes in a later investment round where you start looking at increasing channels, when I think you should already be at least defining it. You know, maybe you can't afford an individual, but you need to give someone responsibility in your executive team for those partnerships.
I want to explore something, and this is speculation. I have a feeling that a lot of it is down to the fact that it's not a straight line. So when you start something, you want straight lines, don't you? You want inbound. I pay for PPC. Somebody clicks and ends up on my website, or somebody picks up a phone. I can straight line measure it, and I know that either they said yes or no, and I got a lead coming in. Whereas partnerships feels like two things. One is it will take time to get right. So, you know, hard maybe goes in the too hard basket, but also it's a double sell. So you as a partnerships manager have to sell the concept of the partnership to a partner, and then a partner effectively has to sell in the idea to one of their clients. So it's that I think people ring fence it and say it's a good idea, but it takes time and it's going to take longer than something that's direct. Is that a myth, or do you think there's weight in that argument?
There's a lot of weight in that argument.
Is there?
There's definitely more variables in building out a partnership ecosystem that need to be considered. As we know, sales is not a straight line in any sense of the analogy. No. But that being said, there are a few more variables that you need to get right, and you need to cultivate those relationships. Partnership definitely. All sales and marketing is about relationships, but to stay top of mind with our partners, that relationship, that shared education, that investment of time really does need to take place. That's something that I've enjoyed actually. I've run my own business for 3-4 years prior to taking on this partnership role, and the opportunity was something I couldn't miss. Prior to that, I was an enterprise sales rep at Liverpool, and relationships have always been important, but when you're say an AE rep, and let's say you've got AE reps in your team speaking to our audience, they're getting to that close point and they're moving on. And then it's maybe handed on to an AE that's got the focus, the AM or the relationship manager that's got that more of a relationship piece. The partnership manager role is a continuous ongoing relationship with your partners. It never ends really until you probably move on from what you're doing. And that requires an investment of time. And it's not clear cut because they're not under your compensation plan. They're not under your management. You can't necessarily fire them, or put them in a pit as such. You can deprioritize partners. And of course, you need to evaluate your program on a quarterly basis, in my opinion. But there's a lot more going on. So I think that's a valid point.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think just digging into that partnerships, that relationship, is there an argument to say that one could assume that I get my partners on board and they'll do the work for, and that maybe the element of managing that relationship and building rapport and trust with them and continuing to help them to find the opportunities is the bit that's missed. And maybe it's easy to get somebody to say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you commission if you introduce me to somebody. Yeah, sure. But actually them making that happen is a very different thing.
It is. The word I've been using a lot since coming onto Drift is reciprocal relationship. It has to be two-way, really does. It's a give and get. Like I feel, and also because I've come in this with a kind of a business owner mindset, I feel it's relationship focused. I know it has to work for you and your business to be motivated. You have to get something from the relationship as much as you're getting your introductions to your client, for example. So I feel that there's, you know, some traditional partner managers that I've met, you know, they're focused on their target. They have a secure partner program, and the expectation was leads. You know, if you're not giving me those leads, then I'm going to move on to the next relationship. And I just don't think that can cut it. You know, we're very focused as an organization. We believe in Amir. We're working about 50% of our revenue. 50% will be driven from the partnership ecosystem and influenced in some way. That's major. So to do that, though, and to encourage partners to make those introductions, to make those referrals, what can we do for you? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. What can you do for the partners as much as what they can do for us? So in this case, our sales reps, but also our customer success managers. Customer success managers are living and breathing every single day in the accounts. They know Drift. They know the use case around Drift. They don't necessarily know, again, that broad and depth that I've spoken about earlier, but they might hear that the company's got other problems. They might have problems with their inbound. They're maybe not working on their ABM strategy so effectively. They might need an outsourced operation because their targets have gone up, but they don't have the headcount internally to do that. And that's when they would speak to their marketing. So, you know, we want to be able to make those introductions as much as we're driving the partner program ecosystem.
So let's say I am a founder or a sales leader in a, you know, £2 million software company, revenue wise, Series A, whatever, you know, early-ish stage, but mature enough that they know what they're doing now to some degree. What do I need to set up a successful partnership program? I'm guessing I need to give it time, and I've got to be, you know, I've got to have a plan. But what elements make up that plan for you?
Well, like anything in accountability, you probably need an individual accountable, right? You got to, if it's early in involvement, do you want to identify someone in your existing organization who can actually allocate and be targeted with, maybe in the early days it's just, you know, net new number of partners, not about the revenue. It's like, can we assess in the market a number of partners and learn and work with those partners to identify other opportunities? There's basically a framework that you're looking at. You're looking at, you know, building the initial relationship. And then really it's all about enablement. Enablement is in, how do you educate that partner on your services? How do you educate that partner on your objectives? How do you educate your partner on why it's good for their business to be involved? And then the final thing is taking action and encouraging action through, you know, what's the word?
Reciprocal.
The reciprocal, you know, arrangement.
You have to write it down above your laptop so you don't forget it.
I've got, like, that approach is what is being repeated for me at Drift time and time again, and everyone's in a different stage. Once you demonstrate with a handful of partners that there is some revenue associated with it, so you might not go out to the partner and say, we expect you're going to deliver $250,000 this year, but you built into your own model should say, well, maybe across 10 partners, we could do an extra $250,000 of revenue over the next 12 months. And then you're assessing that on a quarterly basis. As soon as it's proven, and I'm talking, you know, maybe a quarter or half of that number, you should be investing that back in hiring someone to take responsibility for it. And I'm seeing much more early stage SaaS companies have, only if it's one individual, you know, I'm talking more broadly about UK and European SaaS companies I haven't worked to, but that one individual can start to provide a pipeline flow for the rest of the sales organization. Something else just to pick up on that is important. The partner manager isn't necessarily doing the selling as well. So, you know, it's a co-sell with salespeople. So what are you giving your salespeople? You're already giving them the inbound, you're giving them the outbound, hopefully, and hopefully they're doing their own outbound. You're then feeding them with pipe from the partner arrangement. And building that relationship internally is just as important as building it externally. So people appreciate the importance of partnerships.
Yeah, it's interesting, really interesting. So when I think about partnership programs, I think there's a critical point at which you start to see success, isn't there? And, you know, timelines will vary depending on what the product is and how well you've run it and all those sorts of things and what your market is. But it feels like it's a channel that can't go backwards very easily, because whereas outbound can, you know, people can go remote last year and contact rates dip, you find it hard to get people on, or inbound, you know, another competitor can come in and start bidding more than you, and it takes you a while to realize, and before you know it, you've had a lower demand coming in from that channel for a month or a quarter or whatever it might be. It feels like partnerships would find it much harder to go backwards and downwards in terms of performance, because the more success that a partner sees, the more likely they are to go and talk about it again. And I can't see scenarios that are going to make it start underperforming against where it's been in the past as more partners build.
Oh, I mean, that comment and that statement that you just articulated there, that's what gets my hairs on my end. It compounds, right? Because as soon as a partner sees the value they've added to their client, they've been rewarded, then they're going to keep continuing in that vein. That is the magic tipping point. And then you've got the ecosystem gets created because you have multiple partners servicing different companies in different industries, all talking about your product or service. When you're not there and when you're not investing in it.
That's the key.
And then over time, that compounds in the marketplace, so that there is just both the direct sales engine, which you're always going to be investing in developing, you know, being titled. And then you're just, you know, it happened to me this week. I got an email from one of the partners, James, just to let you know, we're closing this deal worth X amount. It had nothing to do with me, right? But those pipeline opportunities start evolving because of that compound network effect of the ecosystem.
And the key is relationships, right? What I'm hearing, Tom, you've said that word several times. The key is having a genuine, authentic relationship with that partner where you're reciprocal in your desire to help each other move forwards, and that is what makes it successful, right?
Yeah, the relationship is key, as long as it's shared as well with shared business objectives. Right? It's got to be aligned on two areas. One, and this is the extra level of thinking that is required. One, what are your business objectives? So you as a partner, you know, when you think about the drift and air marketing scenarios, like, well, what's air marketing trying to achieve as a business? How are you trying to drive business outcomes for your client? And how do we help both of you in that scenario? That really, this is my cliche line, but that becomes a win-win-win, because in this scenario it becomes a win for Drift, it becomes a win for you, becomes a win for the client, and collectively that win-win-win makes a lot of sense, and that's what adds to that compound effect.
And would you, as a partnerships manager, sooner have fewer partners that are engaged, active, or have a bigger pool of people that maybe are less involved? Because I think there's a maintenance element of looking after those relationships, but also if you've got a few with really deep relationships, there's also a higher risk that they're not active, they don't have the right client base at this point in time and the right opportunities.
Well, I've got to be mindful what I say here. I'm talking to a partner, and also others may be listening. But let's also be clear. There is a competition. There are, you know, horses in the race. And some partners will decide they want to be that fastest horse, and you've got to double down on that. And if you can have a collection of top performing horses, and that's all you need, fantastic. But the risk with the partnership program is you don't necessarily know what partners are going to form and what partners are going to really get it. And it might not be that they're not the ideal fit. It just might not be the time in their strategic priorities. You know, I've got some partners like James. We love Drift. We like you. We want to be doing some business. It's just not the right time for us. And I know that would be the ideal fit. So over time, it's going to be kind of mixed. But ultimately, if you could just have a handful of top performers that are consistently delivering pipeline and revenue, then that's that's the holy grail. But overall, that's not necessarily how it's going to work, because you need to be nurturing a lot of relationships with potential partners to discover who's going to be a top performer.
I guess it's like anything, 80-20 rule, whatever you want to call it, is where, you're going to have a group of partners that's very small, who are going to be really active, really engaged all the time, and others that top that up in dribs and drabs. And I think your point there is the important one. You don't know who they are in advance. And in my experience, those who say, oh yeah, we'll be on this, we've got loads of clients that we can refer across, we see this all the time, are the ones that are often the quietest, and those that are a little bit more thoughtful in the onboarding process, and a little bit more, okay, why would we do this, and is this right for us, are often the ones that are just as thoughtful with their referrals and give you those real bits of gold. And look, I know you didn't say it, but I think the number of partners is critical, because you can go for 5, 10, 20 partners, whatever that small number is for you, and they might not find the right opportunity. And then, you've got to start, I think, reasonably broad, but also, I think, be prepared to let partners go and say, well, at some point, there is no benefit to anybody doing this. Let's come back and revisit it again in the future.
Well, one of the realizations, there's often agreements that get put in place, NDAs, the ways of doing business. That's not revenue. No. Right, that partnership agreement isn't revenue. That's just an agreement to be in business together and be held to certain ways of doing business. And that's the tricky bit. You can get quite excited. I've signed another partner. That is a start, but it really doesn't mean much until the relationship starts to nurture. And that's going to happen. Like I said, it is happening at different times, and that can be the frustration of it. You've got a lot more. If I compare it to being an enterprise sales rep, you've got a lot more control of a sales process that you're owning, managing through to from discovery through the pipeline, to close. Whereas on the partner side, you're going through a different type of process. It's still a process, but you can't press it or pressure it too much. You've got to let it evolve, and that's where the time and patience has to come in.
Yeah, interesting. And then, in terms of how you remunerate a partner, so I guess there's 3 reasons a partner would want to be working with Drift or any other vendor. One is the reputational alliance, and it's good to be aligned with another brand, and the other is to genuinely help your client base, because you see an opportunity to help them move forwards, and having great partners on board is a good way of you being the expert and genuinely being consultative in the way that you help your client base move forward. And then I'm guessing the third is the revenue, right? It pays me money I haven't got the cost of delivering that. I haven't got cost of any service delivery or product delivery there, but I'm getting revenue from that. In my experience, there's a percentage of money that you want to pay, that there's a point at which it's too much from an operational efficiency, profitability perspective for the vendor. And there's a point at which it's not enough to make it interesting for the partner. That will vary depending on margins, product, average deal size, all those sorts of things. What's the typical range that you see work?
Well, there are different models. There is a lot to be said for services businesses that want to be seen as innovative, bring thought leadership to the market. They often, if you're selling time, you want an opportunity to sell more time.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot on just being able to understand the latest technology, being able to advise your clients.
Yeah.
And that's where the hours become valuable from a service perspective. Second to that is implementation. Is this something that is complex enough that we can get hours of implementation time and make money there? Yeah. And and some software is built to be a bit more complex to allow for that channel oriented. Now, looking at percentages wise, generally I see kind of 10 to 30% ranges, depending on if it's on the first year revenue, is it on 2 year, 3 year, is it into perpetuity? So, some companies, for the length of the time that you're in business with them, will continue getting a check from that. And that's, that's quite a good model as well. It's a very good model for the clients. And there's different reasons why you would do, one or the other. But that's typically the models that I've seen.
Okay, brilliant. 2 more questions from me. One is how did you make talking about drift, or for any vendor, their own product, a priority for partners? How do you get yourself up on their priority list? Because you touched on something earlier. They're running a business, right? They've got 1,000 things to think about. If you're number 999 on that, then that ain't coming into a client conversation, right? It's just not going to get brought up. If you're up in the top 10, then you're going to get brought up regularly. What's the key to that for you?
I think it's like the fundamentals of most things. It's attention. One, you've got to hold the attention. You've got to make sure, you've got to ensure that with a good, solid relationship, you're holding the attention and you're educating and enabling for them to make it a strategic priority in their organization. Like once that's defined, once, you know, if we look at North America for drift, that is more mature. We've got agencies that have now made drift a strategic priority in how they go to market. So it's in every single conversation because it makes sense based on how they're going to market about their services. Like conversational marketing, conversational sales as two concepts, take away drift, should be in everyday conversations now. You know, having a lead form, not having a lead form should be in every conversation in marketing sales these days. So for us, actually, that's what we believe, of course, and we have to keep holding attention. Events are a good way to do that, to bring a focus around the partner ecosystem. I was with a partner yesterday that was saying, you know, they definitely miss all the physical action, not just from a specific event, but Ascot, you know, Henley Regatta, Cheltenham, all that good fun stuff, because that's where conversations and reminders, and you know, if you're looking after the partners, that helps. So I guess what I've said in summary there is you need to keep the attention by having a strong relationship, and you need to enable to keep it front of mind.
Yeah, brilliant. And last question. So I'm a founder. I'm launching my my partnership program for the first time. Bear in mind, I might not be a drift, haven't done it in the US. That's Series A. How long do I give it? Like, what's a sensible expectation for it to start contributing revenue?
12 to 18 months.
Thank you. I like that. Nice, concise answer. Got it.
That's what I feel it takes.
Yeah.
You know, you might get some early quick wins, but it's going to take you some time.
Brilliant. And is there anything else that you would add to anybody thinking of starting a partnerships program, other than do it and, you know, and back yourself and how good it is as a channel? Is there anything else that you think we've missed?
I think this has been very thorough.
Has it?
It has. Yeah. You're getting good at this.
I've learned from the best, James. I sat on the other side with you enough times. It's brilliant. Well, I'm glad we've covered it. Do you know what? I've learned a couple of things in that. There's some really interesting points. I love the 12 to 18 month thing, because I think it's a bit like what we do. It could easily be a flash in the pan thing. Let's try it and see what happens, and you can judge it very early.
Yeah, I think just on that point, on the final point, it's easy to switch on and off, you know, inbound and advertising. But if you look at the payoff of SEO, for example, you know it's the long tail. And with partners, it's the long game. And those right over the long term. Let's use that word compound. It will compound, and it will start to bring you opportunities unlike anything else that you've got as a channel in your market, in your business.
I will add one more thing, actually, that I think we have missed, and I've just thought about it. I think that statistically we can fairly confidently say, and I don't have the data, that you would convert partnership referrals at a much higher conversion rate than leads from many other channels. Maybe not all of them, but many other.
That's definitely true. Definitely true in our business, and definitely true in many others. If you've got that third party engagement, help manage the sales motion, it's much more likely to close. You know, sometimes 2-3 times as much a higher close rate because of that involvement of a partner.
Love it. Well, James, thank you ever so much for today. I look forward to having an in-person beer with you and talking more as soon as we can. And I hope that our audience has got some good tips there and hints and ideas in terms of the partnership program. Good luck with growing it out at Drift across EMEA. And who should come and talk to you about being a Drift partner, and how can they get in touch with you if they want to do that?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, best way to reach me, James Ski on LinkedIn. That's where I kind of live most days. And also, if you're providing digital marketing services, you implement technology, or you have sales or sales advisory services, or you're a UK tech company that's in the marketing and sales space, definitely you should come and talk to me, because I really believe that over the next kind of 3 to 5 years, our ecosystem will become one of the predominant ones, simply because we're a complete platform across sales and marketing. If you have got some technology or services in sales or marketing, you should be figuring out how to work with Drift in some way.
Love it. Love it. James, thank you ever so much for today. Really, really great conversation. Learned loads. Love chatting to you. Always do. Thank you very much indeed.
Great. Cheers.